शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome all the devotees for our Bhakti Shastri course, Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 18. So far we have completed till verse number 28, and we have seen Gyanam, Geyam, Parijnata, and then also we have seen the Karma, Karta, all these things in three modes. And now further we are going to see the intelligence, determination, and determination and happiness in three modes. But yes, before going ahead, let's have a small recap. So who was supposed to do the recap?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, and that's I was supposed to do it. Yeah. So to have a small
just a minute, hold on. I have to attend a call. Just a minute.
Yes,
Mataji, your volume is little low. Can you maybe come near the microphone?
yeah. Is it better, Prabhuji?
Okay, Mataji. It can be more clear. I don't know what's the situation there.
Volume on the mic. Is it audible?
Yeah, it's audible, but I think your mouthpiece is away from you. That's why maybe it's like that. If you have a mouthpiece, probably you can put it near.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, I'm sorry. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. So we did in the last session, we talked about 18.18 to 28, the factors that motivate action, Gyanam, Gyayam, and Parigyata, and constituents of action, Karanam, Karma, and Karta. So in this section of 18.18 to 28, Krishna is basically emphasizing on Gyanam, which is the knowledge, which is a factor of action, and Karma and Karta, which are the constituents of action. So the work and Karta, the doer, and how the modes are influencing these aspects is what is discussed here. So knowledge by which one does not discriminate between living entities and has an internal vision to see all spirit souls, all as spirit souls, and everything as spiritual in nature and equal. That knowledge is actually in mode of goodness, and the knowledge by which one sees different living entities in different bodies is in mode of passion, and therefore that knowledge produces many theories and doctrines with a lot of mental speculation in it. And the knowledge which is concerned only with keeping the body comfortable is in mode of ignorance. And there is the next is about the action, which is what kind of action is in what mode, and an action which is done regularly as niyatam, with a sense of detachment and without any likes or dislikes or opinions, and with no desire of fruits of action, that is in mode of goodness. And the one with and such karma which is with desire to enjoy the senses, and with the great pride or false ego, and with lot of hard work and labor, that one is termed as work done in mode of passion. And the work done in ignorance is like filled with laziness, with a sense of bondage. It is destructive, and it does not consider any consequences, and done in illusion. That is actually the work done in ignorance. Then he comes to the points about the doer, the karta, and what is the how the modes are influencing the doer. Is the doer is mostly detached, devoid of any false ego. He's determined, enthusiastic, and unwavering in success or failure. Such a doer is basically in the mode of goodness. A doer who is greedy, envious, impure, and is subject to joy and sorrow is a doer in the mode of passion. And a karta in the mode of ignorance is one who is extremely materialistic. He's a cheater, and lazy, morose, procrastinating. Such a doer is in the mode of ignorance. So this is what we discussed about the knowledge, the which is the jnanam, and the work, which is the karma, and the karta, the doer, in the last section.
Okay, thank you very much, Mataji. Now, here further, Krishna will be explaining about Buddhi and Dhriti. So, just like we saw that Krishna is emphasizing this section for Gyanis, and Gyanis are supposed to be situated in mode of goodness in order to achieve their desired object of self-realization. So that's why now Krishna is telling, in order to show Gyanis that they should accept sattvic items in their life, Krishna will be speaking about the three types of intelligence, determination, and happiness in the upcoming verses. So let us go to that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Buddhir-bhedam dhrutesh-chaiva
Buddhir-bhedam dhriteshchaiva
gunatas-trividham shrunu
Gunatasrividham Shrunu.
rochyamanam asheshena
Rochyamanam Asesena.
pruthaktvena dhananjaya.
Pruthakvena Dhananjaya.
Translation.
Correction. O winner of wealth, now please listen as I tell you in detail of the different kinds of understanding and determination according to the three modes of material nature. Hare Krishna.
So, Gyan, Karma and Karta are the elements of action that we saw, is like what we perceive. So, when we have to pursue something, that is Gyan or knowledge. And then after perceiving, then the person acts. So when the action takes place, at times two important things come into the picture, and that is Buddhi and Dhriti, so intelligence and determination. So Gyan was earlier discussed, and now Buddhi is being discussed. So what is the difference between Gyan and Buddhi? So Gyan means seeing things in proper perspective, and Buddhi means applying that while performing an action. So that is how it is to be understood. And then Dhruti is because with the intelligence one may choose the right thing to do. So then Dhruti is required to continue to do that right thing, the consistency. So this is how the connection is between these three things. So yes, somebody can read this purport.
Now, after explaining knowledge, the object of knowledge and the knower in three different divisions according to the modes of material nature, the Lord is explaining the intelligence and determination of the worker in the same way.
Yes. So actual knowledge, object of knowledge and knower, Gyan, Karma and Karta. So then now comes Buddhi and Dhriti. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha
Buddhim cha nivrittim cha
karya karye bhaya bhaye
karya karye bhaya bhaye
bandham moksham cha ya veti
bandham cha ya veti
buddhi sa partha satviki.
buddhi sa satviki.
Translation.
Translation. O son of Partha, that understanding by
Prutha,
which
son of Prutha.
Oh, son of Pritha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought to not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. Hare Krishna.
So, son of Tha becomes Partha. Like that it is. Because he is son of Pruta, that's why he is also called as Partha. Yeah. Just like son of Vasudev is called Vasudev. Like that. Anyways, so here it is mentioning that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. So pravrutti and nivrutti. Again, we saw some verses back. It was mentioned in the mode of passion, that he doesn't know what is right and wrong. So similarly, we also saw in 16th chapter, Asuri tendency was pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasura. Those who are of demoniac mentality, so they don't know what is right thing to do and what is wrong thing, which is not to be done. So in general, if we see that this pravritti and nivritti is talked here in terms of inclination. These are the inclinations, the right inclinations and the wrong inclinations. But when it comes into action, then that same thing is karya karye. That the karya, what is to be done, the actual activity, and akarye, so that is which is not to be done. So that is more specific about action. And pravritti and nivritti is just the inclination which is there within one's consciousness as a matter of samskara. So karya karye is more specific. And then bhaya bhaye. So bhay, or the fear, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared. So we can see that for certain things a healthy fear is necessary. Just like if a child is there, then he has to be fearful of things like knife or fire or something like that. But if he has fear of going to school, then that has to be driven out, and then he has to be sent to school. So this reminds me of Srila Prabhupada's Grahastha life when he was just married and got some children. So one of his child, he was trying to put his hand in the fan, running table fan. And one of his friend was there at that occasion. And Prabhupada was pulling back the child again and again. And then the friend suggested that you do one thing, that put off the fan and let the child put his hand. So when the fan is put off, the speed is slowing down. And while doing that, if the child puts his hand, then he may get a little bit hurt, but it won't be much disastrous. But because of that one hit, he will understand that this is something to be kept at a bay. We need not go into it. So in that sense, then the person, the boy understood, and then he did not go again. So certain things, healthy fear is necessary, but not that unduly fear of certain things for which one is unnecessarily fearing of certain things. Obviously that comes because person is not in goodness. Here we are talking about buddhi in goodness, the intelligence in goodness. So intelligence in goodness will never fear of certain things which is not to be feared. That is what is explained over here. Like we see the fool's rush in where angels fear to tread. So the people, they don't fear to do sinful activities, whereas saintly people, they are always careful that they don't engage in such sinful activities. So Vishwanath Chakri Thakur very nicely summarizes this as, what is this bhaya and abhaya? So the bhaya is that fear caused by the samsara, and fearlessness is caused by the freedom from samsara, or the activities which leads to the freedom of samsara. So in this way we can understand this bhaya and abhaya as mentioned here by Lord Shri Krishna. And this also reminds me that how Srila Prabhupada would often say that my only worry is that my disciples are not sufficiently fearful of Maya. So this is also one of the very important thing, that when we are practicing Krishna consciousness as a matter of sadhaka, sadhana, bhakti, so we have to be very, very alert always that Maya can trap us in any way. And many times, according to Srila Prabhupada's thoughts, that many times devotees are not so much worried about that. So that is the greatest worry of Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas and our spiritual master, that if we are not sufficiently fearful of Maya, means not that we are always bogged down by the thoughts of Maya. Oh, if I do this, then Maya is there. If I do that, Maya is there. Not in that sense, but sufficiently fearful of Maya means, especially we should be aware about our weak points and our pitfalls where it could happen. And then we are careful in those circumstances. We are careful among those people, and we are careful about those situations like that. So that is being sufficiently fearful of Maya. And at the same time, as Srila Prabhupada himself emulated through his own example, that he was praying once in front of the deities, and when devotees asked, so he said that I'm praying to Radharani that I may not fall down. So that is one of the important aspect, that we should always be in this prayerful mood. So that is what having a sufficient fear of Maya, bhaya bhaye, like that. And bandham moksham. So in general, we see those who are not in mode of goodness, or whose intelligence is not in goodness, they have no idea about bandha and moksha. They are simply engrossed in their own activities.
Pepper mixi keyalle.
So they are simply engaged or engrossed in their own activities, and not bothered what would be the result of this and consequences of this. So they are not worried. But the intelligence, which is in mode of goodness, is always aware about this, and they work towards moksha. So like that. Yes, next verse. Yaya dharmam adharmam cha. Karyam cha karyameva cha. Ayathavat prajanati. Buddhi sa partha rajasi. Translation.
Translation. O son of Pratha, that understanding which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion, between action that should be done and action that should not be done, is in the mode of passion.
Yes. So just like we saw in the previous verse about pravrittim cha nivrittim cha and karya karye. So pravritti and nivritti were the general inclinations, and karya karya was the actual action. Similarly, here also we see that pravrittim, here it is mentioned dharmam adharmam, which are again more general principles about dharma. What is dharma, what is adharma, is not considered. And karyam cha karyam eva cha. There it was in the previous verse we saw that buddhi in intelligence will consider pravritti and nivritti and then do the activity accordingly, karya karya. Whereas here it is the intent of this verse is that the intelligence in mode of passion will overlook dharma and adharma, will overlook dharma and adharma, and that's why will act in any way. So like we see, if we see these things, how it is seen in two different ways. We see the story of Ramayana, Vibhishan was a person who was always encouraging Ravana to act in accordance with dharma and not have and not take unnecessary steps in a way which would bring upon destruction of his dynasty, and which obviously after the war. So don't take such steps which will lead to war and thereby destruction of the dynasty. And at one point of time, he was literally driven out of the kingdom. So he came towards this side and he took shelter of Lord Ram. So we see that when we see this in perspective of Vaishnavism, we understand that Vibhishan, what he did was highest thing to be done. Whereas people who have intelligence in mode of passion, we see that there are a class of people who proclaim Ravana to be God. They claim that Ravana is the hero, and that's how they say that Vibhishan is the betrayer of Ravana. But when we see that from the real point of view, from principles of dharma point of view, actually Ravana is the betrayer of dharma, and Ravana is betrayer of principles laid down by the Lord. So that's how we see that these people who have intelligence in mode of passion, they are not considering activities according to dharma and adharma, or they are themselves concocting some things based on their understanding. So that's why there are some people who consider activities of karma kand to be more important than bhakti. I still remember that in our Kunja Bihari temple in Pune, in camp. So when I was at that place before new temple opened in NVCC, so that time one person would very regularly come in the temple, and he would take out certain things from his bag and then keep them at a place and then do some kind of worship and that, some kind of activities, So he probably he was considering those activities to be more important than directly taking darshan and participating in the kirtan of the Lord. So he was not aware fully about these things, So later on, when it was brought to the notice of management, and then he was told not to do that. So then what he used to do is he would to do that outside the compound wall of the temple. But somehow he would come to Krishna. That was good thing. But at the same time, he was not aware fully that what he is doing. He was thinking that what he is doing, the way of thing. So that is more important than what these devotees are doing, just simply chanting and dancing. So if that kind of understanding is there, then it is like Buddhi in mode of passion, not having clear understanding about what is dharma and adharma. And here it is mentioned that ayathavat prajanati. So ayathavat. So we see that Bhagavad-Gita as it is, or in Hindi it is Bhagavad-Gita yatha roop. So yatha roop means as it is. So Bhagavad-Gita is presented in that form which Krishna was intending to speak. But here it is mentioned the word ayathavat, means not as it is. So they don't take things, or not they, the people who have the intelligence in mode of passion, so that intelligence doesn't take things as it is, So like that it is. So this is this is the characteristics of intelligence in mode of passion. And then next we will see the intelligence in mode of ignorance. Adharmam dharmamiti ya manyate tamasavrita sarvarthan vipraritamscha sarvarthan viparitamscha buddhi sa partha tamasi. Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. That understanding which considers irreligion to be religion and religion to be religion under the spell of illusion and darkness and strives always in the wrong direction, O Partha, is in the mode of ignorance.
Okay. So now Krishna is talking about this buddhi in mode of ignorance. So we can see that here nothing is clear. For a person in mode of ignorance, nothing is clear. Not only not clear, but it takes everything in opposite way, So that is how the word viparitamsha is mentioned over here. Viparitamsha means taking other way around, taking dharma to be adharma, taking adharma to be dharma, considering adharma to be dharma. So ya manyate, that is they think like that. Sarvarthan viparitamscha, everything opposite of the truth. That is tamasic intelligence. So people sometimes consider God to be ordinary person, or sometimes they consider an ordinary person to be God. So like that, everything is topsy-turvy in this kind of intelligence in mode of ignorance. Or sometimes they promote themselves to be great person or a religionist, although they are following something so-called process. Or sometimes they promote their pet guru. So that is the word we can use. Pet guru means just like people have pets, dogs and cats. So they also have some sometimes guru just to make a show that yes, I also have a guru and I'm following somebody. So like that, everything is reverse, in their thought process. So now one thing is interesting to understand, that what these three things we talked about, or what Krishna is talking about rather, is the intelligence in the mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. So it may also happen that sometimes somebody may have a lifestyle which may be rajasic or somewhat sattvic also to some extent, but he may have intelligence tamasic, wherein he is considering dharma to be adharma, or some ordinary person to be God, like that. Or it could be vice versa also. Somebody may have a very tamasic lifestyle, but he may sometimes have a sattvic or rajasic intelligence. So things are very not so much coherent. Obviously, most of the time it is expected that if somebody's lifestyle is in goodness, then his intelligence will also be in goodness. His dhruti will be in goodness. Everything will be in accordance. But it would also be over a period of time. So sometimes it may happen that the person who has a lifestyle in goodness may eventually end up with having intelligence and goodness. So that could happen. So we saw that Krishna is mentioning these modes are always having competition over each other, and they win over. So sometimes this is higher, sometimes that is higher. So that's why it is nothing static. Everything is dynamic in these considerations. So after explaining intelligence, then Krishna will explain dhruti in three modes. Yeah, before going to that, I have not put up in the slide, but can somebody read the purport to verse 32?
Which section? Bhakti? Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Read, Prabhuji, read.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Intelligence in the mode of ignorance is always working the opposite of the way it should. It accepts religions which are not actually religions and rejects actual religions. Men in ignorance understand a great soul to be a common man and accepts a common man as a great soul. They think truth to be untruth and accept untruth as truth. In all activities, they simply take the wrong path. Therefore, their intelligence is in the mode of ignorance.
Yes, thank you. Now Krishna will speak about dhruti in mode of passion. Yeah, before going to that, we will just see that how we see that somebody is in ignorance is certainly bad. I think you must have gone through this in Ishopanishad also. Vidyamcha Vidyamchaiva, in that verse, this section covers that to be in ignorance is bad, certainly. And to be in ignorance, but to claim to be in knowledge is worse. So one is in ignorance, but he's claiming that no, I am in knowledge. So that is worse. And worse than that, or worst of all, is to be in ignorance, to claim to be in knowledge, and to claim that what so-called ignorant knowledge he has is the knowledge. That is the worst. So that is what it is all, tamasic intelligence. And we see this in an example of King Vena, who was the son of Maharaj Anga, who was in one sense kind of a terrorist ruler. So he was scolding all the citizens and brahmanas who were worshipping various demigods and Lord Vishnu, that what nonsense you are all doing. You are supposed to worship me. So that is how he was doing this. He himself was in ignorant, but he was claiming that I am the recipient of all worship. That his so-called ignorant knowledge, he was claiming that that is knowledge. And on the top of it, he was ensuring that people do follow what he is trying to tell. So that is how this King Vena's example can be understood. So actually, the king is nothing but the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's why he is also called as Naradeva. Naradeva means one who is in the form of human. So God incarnates in the form of human, or God represents himself in the form of human, in the form of king. So king is not in any way replacement for God, which Vena was trying to do. Certainly is not a replacement for the God, but he is en route towards the God. He is supposed to direct all the people to God, but that was not being done. And that's how we see that then the Brahmanas, they decided, and with the hunkar, just they did hum, and then he was gone, dead and gone. So that is a point, that tamasic intelligence means they will prove what is not right to be right. So that is what it is. Yes. So now we'll talk about dhruti. Dhrutyaya dharayate manah pranendriya kriyah yogena vyabhicharinya dhruti sa partha satviki. Translation.
Oh, son of
Hare
Pritha.
Krishna Prabhu.
Go ahead, Mataji.
O son of Pritha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness.
Yes. So, dhritya yaya dharayate mana pranendriya kriya. So, mana, prana, indriya, kriya. One who dharayate yaya dhritya. One who has control over mind, prana, indriya, senses, and life airs, prana. So that is nothing but the determination in mode of goodness, and then yogena avyabhicharinya. That is in addition to that it is unbreakable, that, or without any hindrance, the person with great determination, he has control over his mind, his life airs, and all the senses. So that kind of determination is in mode of goodness. So we see that discrimination or the intelligence is that which helps us to identify what is right. So just we saw in the previous section of the 3 verses wherein the intelligence was being talked about in 3 modes, and pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. So the discrimination is very clear, what is right and what is wrong. Whereas in the case of now here in determination, when the person has understood what is right and what is wrong with the Satviki intelligence, then the Satviki determination helps him to do the right thing with consistency. So that is to be understood. So Satvik determination helps the person to do the right thing with consistency. So many times when we discuss with devotees, so they come up with this difficulty which they put up, that we are not able to have consistency in our sadhana. Especially many devotees face this in form of reading Shastra. So now the Bhakti Shastri course going on, so it may be the case that many of you are reading, but the real test would come when there is no course, no exams, and what are we doing? So that will determine based on where is our determination situated, in which mode, So the determination in mode of goodness will help us to do the right thing consistently without any hindrance. And what is that? So discrimination will help us to do the right thing, which is nothing but acceptance of the path of Krishna consciousness, whereas determination will help us to pursue the path with unwavering determination despite many obstacles which may come on the way. So that is how it could be understood. Yes, somebody can read the translation. It's not put up on the slide.
Yoga is a means to understand the Supreme Soul. One who is steadily fixed in the Supreme Soul with determination, concentrating one's mind, life, and sensory activities on the Supreme, engages in Krishna consciousness. That sort of determination is in the mode of goodness. The word avyabhicharanya is very significant, for it indicates that persons who are engaged in Krishna consciousness are never deviated by any other activity. Hare Krishna.
So here one more thing to be understood is very nicely that there are many people we see who are consistently doing their activities of sense gratification. And for that also they may need control over their mind and senses. It's like there may be a sports person who wants to achieve a running race target, that within so many seconds he has to win the sprint race. So for that he is determined, and he is utilizing his mind, or rather he is having control over his mind, life, ears, and senses, so that he may achieve the target. So this kind of determination cannot be considered in mode of goodness, although there is control over mind, life, air, and senses. Why? Anybody can say why it cannot be considered?
Because it's in mode of passion, Prabhuji.
Yeah, but
Passion
why
to
it cannot
achieve
be
some-
considered? What is the
Because
clarifying?
there is an
qualifying
attachment to the result of action. There is a desire for some result from the action.
Okay. Still, I'm looking something more.
Because it doesn't lead towards bhakti.
Quite close. Quite close. It is not connected. There is no yoga in that. So here the word yogena avyabhicharanya. Yogena means linking process has to be there. So like that. And yes, the other answer was also right, that there was some desire to result. But to be more specific, we were looking for this because this word is mentioned by Krishna in the translation. In the verse yoga. So yogena avyabhicharanya, like that. Yes, and then let's go to next verse. Yaya tu dharma kamarthan Vritya dharayate Arjuna Prasangena falakankshi
Prasangena
Dhriti sa partha rajasi
Dhriti sa Rajasi.
Translation.
Shall I read, Prabhu?
Yes, please.
But that determination by which one holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification is of the nature of passion, O Arjuna.
Okay. So, so here the qualifying factor is palakankshi, which was rightly pointed out previously, that fruitive results are there. Means here one thing to be understood is that this determination is there, which may be utilized while performing some dharmic activity. Yaya tu dharma kamarthan. This is to be understood again, that dharma kamarthan is there, but with some great expectation of fruitive result, economic development and sense gratification. So dharma, kam, and artha. So for these things, three things, dhritya dharayate. But how? Prasangena palakankshi. So he has a great attachment to that activity and he is expecting some great result out of it. So like that. So this kind of determination is nothing but in mode of passion. And we see that there are many people in today's day and age, or even in previous times, are performing some kind of rituals or fasting, this, that, to attain some expected result in dharma, artha, kama. Hardly, they are not so much bothered about moksha, but about dharma, artha, kama. And there are many people who are doing many kinds of fasting and this, that, so that all comes under this category of where the determination is in mode of passion. So externally they may also have a very simple peaceful life, they may be visiting temples and everything is there. They may be having a very sattvic lifestyle also, but the dhriti, the determination, is in mode of passion because there is some expectation of the result, like that. So this we discussed previously also, just reiterating the point. Now let's go and see what is Krishna explaining us about dhriti in mode of ignorance. Yaya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madame cha na vimunchati durmedha dhriti sa partha tamasi. Yes, translation.
And that determination, which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion, such unintelligent determination, O son of Pritha, is in the mode of darkness. Hare Krishna.
So these are the characteristics of determination in mode of darkness or ignorance. Swapnam. So swapnam means a dream. But Srila Prabhupada clarifies that in the purport, that there can be dreaming even in mode of goodness and passion. But here the word dreaming is indicating too much of sleep. And we can see that when person is too much of sleeping and he is in dreaming state, so he is hardly in connection with the reality. If we see from the spiritual point of view, a person who is awake is also actually dreaming. Then what to talk of person who is not at all awake? He is dreaming in the dream. So that is what we can see, that then such person who is too much of sleep, having too much of sleep, then he completely disconnects himself with the reality, the reality of the life. So we can come to this understanding that there are some people, so they say that we don't believe in the existence of the God. There is no God. Why? Because they don't come out of their darkness and they don't want to see the light. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example of owls. So that owl, whenever sun rises, he will go into the dark, and he will not come out. And if we say that just see the sun has come out, he said, no, there is no sun. See, I am not able to see any sun. So like that. So they are not in touch with the reality. Yaya swapnam. So we can see that when there is a vision without action, then that is like the dream. When there is only vision but no action, so that is like the dream. And when there is action without any vision, vision means the visionary thing which we talk about. So then that is kind of a disaster sometimes. We are not sure every time it would success or not when there is action without any vision. So, but certainly vision without only action is nothing but the dream. And then bhayam, so always such kind of determination is engrossed in the bhay. What will happen? What will happen if I do this? What will happen if I do that? No confidence at all. And because of that, he is always in the great shoka or lamentation. So always is lamenting, shokam. And the definition of a shudra, shochayate iti shudra, is that he is always lamenting. Because the person, generally we say, when we see the shudra, then we understand that shudra is generally in the mode of ignorance. So then person in ignorance is tend to take wrong decisions, and when that results into some difficulty, then he keeps on lamenting over that. So that is how cycle keeps happening. So here the determination in mode of passion also is determined in the wrong way, wrong direction. Always lamenting. And vishad, so there is complete moroseness. Just like we see the first chapter is entitled as Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So Arjuna was in great moroseness and lamentation, and that's how we see that Krishna is chastising him in the second chapter, Asochan Shochastvam. You are lamenting for something which is not to be lamented, and then you are claiming to be very intelligent and speaking very flowery words, Pragya Vadamsha Bhashase. But you are simply lamenting upon things which you are not supposed to lament. So that is Shochayateti Shudra and Vishad, moroseness. And then Madam. Madam is complete illusion. So it is like somebody is addicted to, some wrong activity, especially drinking alcohol or something. So he feels that my shoka or my lamentation will end when I reach to the bottom of the bottle. That means when the bottle is empty, then my lamentation will end. But that is not real the case at all. It is simply putting him out of the reality for some time. That's all. And when he comes back to the reality, then again the same thing continues. So such people whose determination is actually in the negative zone. He is addicted and is determined to do those kind of activities of drinking liquor and all in these situations. So his determination is actually in the negative zone. And na vimunchati durmedha. So we have this word sumedha, yajantihi sumedhasaha in Bhagavatam, that the person who is having a good intelligence, he will worship Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a supreme Lord. Whereas here the word durmedha has come, the unintelligent people or who have no proper intelligence, na vimunchati, and they don't give up also their madness or their illusion. They don't give it up. Such kind of determination is in mode of ignorance. So yes, we can read the purport. It is given in the slideshow.
So, it should not be concluded that a person in the mode of goodness does not dream. Here, dream means too much sleep. Dreaming is always present, either in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. Dreaming is a natural occurrence. But those who cannot avoid oversleeping, who cannot avoid the pride of enjoying material objects, who are always dreaming of lording it over the material world, and whose life, mind, and senses are thus engaged, are considered to have determination in the mode of ignorance.
Yes. So now we see that Krishna has so far explained the intelligence and determination which may be required for the necessary jnanam, karma, and karta. So karta needs determination and intelligence so as to choose the sattvic items. The jnani needs determination, intelligence, and determination, which is sattvic, so as to choose the sattvic lifestyle and be in a sattva guna, so that he can attain self-realization. So what is all this done for? Why so much of endeavor is being done for? Is done for ultimately attaining the real happiness of life. And that's how now Krishna will talk about the happiness in three modes. Sukham tu idanim trividham. Shrunu me bharatarshava. Abhyasad ramate yatra. Dukkhantam cha nigacchati. Translation.
O best of the Bharatas, now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. Hare Krishna.
So yes, just before going to this verses on happiness, are there any questions in relation to intelligence and dhruti?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, it's not that like each individual is only in the mode of ignorance, or only in the mode of goodness, or only in the mode of passion, right? So there is always also mixture of these as well, and situations also sometimes determined also in terms of which mode somebody is as well. Is that right understanding?
Yes, absolutely. So that's why what matters as sadhakas for us is always taking the right choice, so that we are at least situating ourselves in goodness, and then eventually that will help us to even transcend the goodness one day. Like, yes, any other? Okay, so we'll go ahead. So here Krishna is now mentioning Sukham tu idanim trividham. Sukha is also of three kinds. Shrunume bharatarshava. Hey, O best of Bharatas, please hear that from me. And abhyasad ramate yatra dukkhantam cha nigacchati. So immediately Krishna starts speaking about the first kind of happiness, and he's giving a synopsis. Abhyasat ramate yatra dukkhantam cha nigacchati. The conditioned soul, abhyasat ramate, it takes pleasure in that kind of activity, or he takes pleasure in the practice of that kind of activity which will give him ultimate happiness, and dukkhantam cha nigacchati, which will end all kinds of distress. So certainly we can very clearly understand that this kind of happiness would only be that happiness in mode of goodness. So, by its nature only we understand this, that the person is taking pleasure in the activity, in the practice, and it will end up all his miseries. So dukkhantam, antam, the end. This word antam has been repeated several times by Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita. Antavattu ime deha nityasyokta sharirina. That in the second chapter, Krishna says that this deha is bound to end one day, whereas the soul will continue to exist. And then further, adyantavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. Yeah, so that's also is there, that adi anta kaunteya. So the in the beginning and in the end, there is always suffering because of the contact of senses with the sense objects. And that's why one who is intelligent, na teshu ramate buddha, he doesn't take pleasure in that. And then when Krishna is explaining about the worship of demigods, he is saying antavattu phalam tesham yad vadati alpa medhasan, that those who are of less intelligence, they are worshipping the demigods, but the result which that is obtained is antavat, is not permanent, it's temporary. So similarly, here it is mentioned in a different connotation, the word antam, that the dukkha will come to an end when he takes pleasure in that kind of practice which will bring him happiness in mode of goodness. So this makes this gives an indication that happiness in mode of goodness has to be cultivated. Abhyasat means practice. So that has to be cultivated. And what is that? What is the characteristics of that happiness in mode of goodness is explained in the next verse. Yattadagre visham iva
Yattad agre visham
pariname mrutopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awaken one to self-realization is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness.
Yes. So the happiness in mode of goodness appears to be like poison in the beginning. Yattadagre visham iva. Visham iva. So poison is something which is making person die. So in the beginning, the activities which are going to give the happiness in mode of goodness appears to be making person die. Just like we see when disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had gone to UK for preaching, London, and then they came across with this wealthy man, and they asked him, "Can you make me a Brahmana?" And he said, "Yes." So what I have to do? And then immediately they told, "You have to just follow the 4 regulative principles." And as soon as he said, "I will die," impossible. So when somebody is too short-sighted, is not able to see what is going to get at the end, then for him it is like death. So that's why the initial practice for a sadhaka is like a great struggle, and there is no so to say happiness that he gets, and that's why he feels that is vishamiva. It's like poison. get me out of here. That is what the person may feel like. And that's why before this, already it is explained that dhriti, determination, should be there, in mode of goodness. Means what? That you have to perform that control of mind, senses, and the life airs while being in connected with the Supreme. And when one is doing that with that determination, then even if one is feeling that struggle or feeling like death, because it's a big blow for the false ego, but what is the result of that? Pariname amrutopamam. Even though in the beginning time there may be a great struggle and such feeling of disgust and all these things, but then the result is amruta. Tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. So it is born out of jam, means ja, born out of what? Prasada, satisfaction. So the intelligence is born out of satisfaction, and that's why such happiness is nothing but the happiness in mode of goodness. So we can see that we can get the willpower to continue. So this struggle is the struggle for every sadhaka, that he has to undergo this dark phase in his life, wherein apparently he is not getting any result, but to some extent he is aware that what he is going to get in future, and that only will help him to continue. And that's why for that we have repetition of such talks and discussions, that what is the result of what we are doing, what is the value of what we are doing, why we do what we do. So if these things are discussed and churned over again and again, then it becomes to somewhat tolerable to go across this dark phase, which is like visham. We feel like, oh, we are being fed poison. It is so bitter. It is so, it is killing me. Why it is killing me? Because the tendency to enjoy is so strong for the jiva, and then suddenly he is acting against that tendency. So then it is making him feel, the false ego is giving him the feeling of that you are being killed. And it is also true that by this actually false ego is being killed. And then the real ego, when it is established, then he will feel that amrutam. So that's why we have to tolerate and penetrate through this layer of poison, and go across, go beyond that to the ocean of nectar. But that we can see that there are some cases wherein people, after practicing a certain number of years, they come to a zone where they feel, what am I doing? 10 years have passed, 15 years have passed, but I am still the same. There's no taste in chanting, there's no taste in reading, and person may feel great dejection in his life. But that is nothing but the test offered by the Lord. Because Sudurlabha, we see now the next book which you are going to go is for Nectar of Devotion, in which it is mentioned that one of the characteristic of pure devotional service is it's very rare. So if it is so rare, then how it can be awarded so easily? So that's why this phase is very great struggle for jiva. But if one is serious in one's practice and constantly being in association of devotees and taking guidance from senior Vaishnavas, then certainly he can cruise across this ocean of poison and reach to the ocean of nectar. So that is a explanation about this happiness mode of goodness. Yes, somebody can read the purport, not in the slide.
Hare Krishna. In the pursuit of self-realization, one has to follow many rules and regulations to control the mind and senses and to concentrate the mind on the self. All these procedures are very difficult, bitter like poison. But if one is successful in following the regulations and comes to the transcendental position, he begins to drink real nectar and he enjoys life. Hare Krishna.
Yes. And we can see it's not that always there is poison. We can see in our own lives that we keep getting some drops of nectar here and there, and that is also yet another reason why which we continue. So Krishna is also very expert, and he knows when to give those drops of nectar, so that we will not be completely dejected and give up like that. Yes. So next, Vishayendriya Sanyogat
Vishayendriya samyogat
Yattadagre Mritopamam
yadadagre mritopamam
Pariname Vishamiva
parinameva
Tatsukham Rajasam Smritam.
Tatsukam Rajasam Smritam.
Translation.
Hare Krishna. That happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects and which appears like nectar at first but poison at the end is said to be of the nature of passion.
Yes. So it is exactly opposite. The happiness derived from the contact of senses. Visha Indriya Sanyoga. Vishaya Indriya Sanyoga. So when there is contact of Vishaya and Indriya Sanyog, then what happens? Yattad Agre Amrutopamam. It appears that, oh, wonderful, what a nectar it is. But Pariname Vishamiva. But the result is what? It's like poison. That kind of happiness is nothing but happiness in mood of passion. So this is a general thing which any jiva is following. You always feel that, oh, my senses need nice things to eat, my senses need nice things, my ears need nice things to hear, my tongue needs nice things to taste, my eyes needs nice things to see. And what nice definition he has is also not very clear, and that's why he is always focused on material objects, or material vishaya, the sense objects which are all material. And thereby what happens, that initially he may feel some kind of pleasure because of that contact of sense with the sense object, but the result is visham. Why? Because that again makes one bound to this cycle of birth and death. Because of getting entangled with the sense objects, then the jiva has to once again take up various forms of life, like that. So that is why we see that if in one case we see that the fish has fallen out of the ocean due to some circumstance, so if he sees on the other side of the ocean, so here is ocean, the fish is fallen out of the ocean, and if he sees on the other side a mirage, and he feels that this is the ocean, and if he jumps here, then to go to real ocean he will have to cross longer distance, but when he is here, if he understands that, oh, here is the ocean, and he jumps towards that, then very shortly he comes to the real ocean. But in such circumstances, we see that Jivatma always thinks this mirage to be the real ocean, and that's why he jumps on this side, and now he has to cross a longer distance to come to the real ocean. So that is the situation, and that's how then the people or the living entities in this material world, they fall trapped to all these attractions of sensory things, and everywhere we see that the advertisement agency is taking a great advantage by utilizing the attraction of the senses to the sense objects and selling their products, So we see that there are certain times some advertisements wherein there is no question of any, lady, but then they put some good looking lady just to attract people's attention and then, increase their sale, like that. So they just take advantage of these things. But result of this is that person gets entangled and then he is trapped, So this is nothing but the happiness in mode of passion, wherein just simply a person feels that, yes, this is the thing I was looking for and I got it. So but the real thing is that he is going to end into poison. So yes, somebody can read the purport for this verse.
Yes, Prabhu. A young man and a young woman meet, and the senses drive the young man to see her, to touch her, and to have sexual intercourse. In the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses, but at the end, or after some time, it becomes just like poison. They are separated, or there is divorce, there is lamentation, there is sorrow, etc. Such happiness is always in the mode of passion. Happiness derived from a combination of the senses and the sense objects is always a cause of distress and should be avoided by all means.
Yes. And then finally, Krishna will talk about the happiness in mode of ignorance. Yadagre chanubandhe cha
Yadagre chanubandhe cha
sukham mohanam nidralasya pramadotham tattamasam udarutam. Translation, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. And that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be of the nature of ignorance. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Yat agre cha anubandhe cha. In the beginning and at the end. Sukham mohanam atmanaha. There is just an illusion of being happiness. And how it's arising from? Nidra, alasya, pramada, utthaha. Arising from nidra, alas, and pramad. So if you remember, when Krishna was explaining us the characteristic of ignorance, goodness, passion, and ignorance, when he was explaining, so he explained that the characteristic of ignorance is nidra, alas, and pramad. And here also the same thing Krishna is saying, that one whose happiness is arising from nidra, alas, and pramad is nothing but the happiness in mode of ignorance. So one is simply taking great pleasure in sleeping for long hours, and laziness. He is completely lazy to do anything, or even to take bath, like many of you who have been staying in the hostel. So I also have this experience that there were people in our hostel who would not take bath for days together, So I remember there was once the situation wherein all the other hostelmates, they decided that today we will somehow or other, make this person take bath, and they put some bucket on the top of the door, and as soon as the door was opened, the bucket fell on him, something like that. So people are there who are taking great pleasure in simply these activities which are arising from nidra, alasa, and pramad, illusion, madness. So this is nothing but the happiness in mode of ignorance. And this kind of happiness actually is so-called happiness, but it only is illusory. So that's why yad agrecha anubandhecha sukham mohanam. It is complete delusion only. There is no happiness actually. But the person who is in that situation, he is thinking he is happy. But those who are not, they can clearly see that actually he is in illusion or delusion, like that. Yes, purport.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One who takes pleasure in laziness and in sleep is certainly in the mode of darkness, ignorance, and one who has no idea how to act and how not to act is also in the mode of ignorance. For the person in the mode of ignorance, everything is illusion. There is no happiness, either in the beginning or at the end. For the person in the mode of passion, there might be some kind of uh,
Ephemeral.
ephemeral happiness in the beginning and at the end distress. But for the person in the mode of ignorance, there is only distress, both in the beginning and at the end. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So for a person in mode of passion, there may be ephemeral happiness, Prabhupada says. Ephemeral means very transient, fleeting, just temporary in the beginning and distress at the end. But for the person in mode of ignorance, there is simply distress, So he's completely in a delusion. So like that. So this is all description about intelligence in three modes, and determination in three modes, and finally the happiness in three modes. Are there any questions?
Prabhuji,
yes.
When we in the happiness in the mode of passion, so people don't know whether like self-realization is needed or not, right? So for them, enjoying with the sense objects, so how that is poison, because for them they don't know that they are getting entangled in this world, and for them, yeah, it is like it is all okay. And previously coming from like before coming to Krishna consciousness as well, so this was also my thought process as well, right? That okay, this is okay, this is happiness, and this is all it was okay. Now I know or realize, okay, it is entanglement, and that's how I am able to realize. But in the situation where somebody is not able to realize or do not have this knowledge, so how that is poison?
I will ask you another question. That in the third verse, Krishna is telling that it is distress. I'll ask you how it is distress for the person in mode of ignorance.
In the mode of ignorance, yeah, I relate to this as well, because I'm also in these mode as well. So earlier, like it was also in the mode of ignorance, and I took very pleasure in sleeping a lot and so as well. So for me, it was all okay. But now when I see this, right? So as you said that for other people, when you see for other, like when
The
you see
point is that,
for other people,
sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
The point is that, as you just now very humbly mentioned that in previous times you took pleasure in sleep, but actually it was a distress. Why it is distress? Because it is leading to nothing. But that time the person doesn't understand when he has no knowledge. But when he comes to knowledge, then only he understands this. So what is Bhagavad-Gita meant for? Bhagavad-Gita is meant to awaken the knowledge. So person who is in such activity, or who is taking pleasure in being in tamasa, so then after he reads this, he will understand, Are, oh, I am this person actually. I am the person who is sleeping a lot, and then he may try to improve over it. So actually this is, yeah, very good that you asked this question. This also reminded me that after reading all these things, different modes, so we may feel that I am in certain mode, or I am in this mode, in this activity, or my intelligence is in this mode, so we may come to know these things, but then that should not deject us in any way, but it should give us a understanding that it is Krishna's great mercy and Prabhupada's great mercy that they have made me realize what is my situation, where am I situated. And Krishna is time and again inspiring, to go beyond the mode. So if we are in ignorance, then go to passion. If you are in passion, go to goodness. If you are in goodness, then transcend beyond that. And if at all you take up to Krishna consciousness, you directly go from ignorance to, above goodness. So like that. So there is in no way get dejected out of this, but then we have to understand that whichever mode we may be situated, we try to improve. And as Krishna has said that if we perform his bhakti or vyabhicharini bhakti, then sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate, we can certainly cross over all the modes. We can go beyond the modes. So like that it is. So that's why when we read this, we should understand that this is from the point of view of scripture. That person who is taking pleasure in ignorant activities is actually in distress. But person who is in mode of ignorance, he may not feel that distress. He may take enjoyment. That's why it is called happiness in mode of ignorance. You see? But while we are explaining this happiness in mode of ignorance, but at the end, in the translation, Prabhupada is also saying, or in the purport, that from the beginning to then end, there is distress only. So that is from the spiritual point of view, from the point of view of scriptures. But from the point of view of that person who is situated in that mode, he is thinking he is happy. It's like that. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Any other question or comment?
But one who does not read or he doesn't know anything about, he is in ignorance only, he'll feel happiness till the end. So many people will be like that also, isn't it, Prabhuji?
Yes, correct. But are they actually happy?
But for them, they feel happy because they
Yes,
don't know that
that is what I was explaining. That is what I was explaining. That when we are reading this, we have to see this. That we have to see this from the light of scriptures. That person who is in mode of ignorance, he may feel happiness, which is actually delusion.
Yeah.
Means it is like dream. Like in the dream, if we are becoming king and we are getting a lot of enjoyment as a king and lot of foodstuffs and nice clothes to wear, and when the dream ends, everything is over. So similarly, such people who are in mode of ignorance, their dream continues maybe sometimes for whole life.
Yes,
so they are completely deluded in that way. So unless and until they are woken up, either through some devotee or through some incident which may happen in their life and by which they may turn to spirituality, they will continue like that. And they will think that they are taking happiness. But when from the light of scriptures, we know actually they are in a great distress. Like that. Is this clear for everyone or any other comment? Yes, Mataji.
Yes, it is clear.
Prabhuji, thank you. Ayurveda, it is told that all these qualities are kapha prakriti person. So there are three prakritis, vata, pitta, and kapha. So all about this laziness, sleep, and all is told about in kapha prakriti person, and the passion is told about in pitta prakriti person. So all these person who has kapha prakriti, it is difficult to, it is difficult for him to be changed, as told in Ayurveda, because he is prone for all these diseases and all. So that's what I was thinking. Most of us,
you are an Ayurvedic doctor?
Yes, Prabhuji. So we just diagnose a person by these things, Prabhuji. So I was just thinking, how should we get this person to, maybe we are also into that only, but how should we get that person to do all these things, Prabhuji? Like, these are his
if I'm not wrong,
characters.
If I'm not wrong, actually, I have heard that kapha is in mode of goodness, pitta is in mode of passion, and vata is in mode of ignorance. That's what I have heard.
Vata is Bandhaj Prabhuji. It is mode of goodness and passion. No single prakriti is never in mode of goodness. It is always at Bandhaj Prakriti only, Prabhuji. So And one more doubt, Prabhuji. Actually, it is told that Vishendriya Sanyoga Agre Amrita Upamam knows, Prabhuji. Until and unless the Vishaya and Indriya and Sanyoga are in contact, Pratyaksha will not be there, no, Prabhuji. So, how do we recognize that it is only in passion, Prabhuji? Like it is told in Pratyaksha Pramana that Atmendriya Manoarthanam Sannikarsha Pravartate. So whenever the Atma, Indriya and Mana are in Sannikarsha, so whenever the Vishaya, Indriya are in Sanyoga, then only the Pratyaksha Pramana takes place. So is it Ati Yoga, Ayoga of passion? That's what I was not able to understand, Prabhuji.
See, happy here we have to first understand that here Krishna is talking about happiness in three modes. First thing to be very clear about. Second thing is, now when Krishna is talking about happiness in mode of passion, so Krishna is clearly defining what is that happiness in mode of passion is when somebody is taking pleasure in contact with sense objects. When the senses are coming in contact with sense objects, that kind of pleasure when one is experiencing, that happiness is in mode of passion. So this is a clear definition. Now what you are trying to correlate with other, I'm not able to understand that. With what you are correlating this with?
Sorry, Prabhuji. Whenever the senses are in contact with the objects, then only the Pratyaksha will be, I mean, the Pramana will take this. Pratyaksha is visible, sir, Prabhuji. Like,
okay.
Is it Atiyoga of the senses and their objects, or it is the Ayoga of the senses or objects which is causing the passion, Prabhuji?
What is Atiyoga and Ayoga?
Yoga and Ayoga is excessive use and very little use, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Like you can see a sense or sense object only when Atma, Indriya and senses are able to see that object, Prabhuji. So Atmendriya Manoarthanam, that is what is given, Prabhuji. So it is similar what I'm seeing in the shloka. So I couldn't make it out. That's why I was.
No, Pratyaksha Praman is something what? That the evidence given based on sensory perception. That is Pratyaksha Praman. It is Praman, means evidence. For example, some person is doing thievery, stealing, pickpocketing, and I happen to see that with my eyes. So that is that Pratyaksha Praman, means I am the witness or I am the evidence because I am seen it completely with my own eyes. So that we call as Pratyaksha Praman. And here something different is being taught. Here it is that senses are coming in directly contact with the sense objects, and the happiness derived out of that is happiness in mode of passion. So how that two things are being correlated, I'm still not able to understand. Maybe some what do you
I'll
say?
share you those slokas, Prabhuji, probably. Because every time the senses are in contact with their objects only, na Prabhuji. Like Netra is in contact with the object.
Okay, I understood now. Right. Yes. So now I understood your point. So for that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur very clearly gives the understanding that senses may be in contact with the sense objects, but if the pleasure is derived, then that is called as sense gratification. If pleasure is not derived, then there is no sense. It means, for example, if a person walking down on a street sees a very beautiful young woman, and if he doesn't feel that pleasure of getting attracted to that young woman, then he is not, we cannot categorize that as sense gratification. But after seeing, if he starts feeling that how can I enjoy with this young woman, that means that that Vishaya Indriya Sanyoga has happened. Is that clarifies your question?
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, fine. Any other question? Last. Fine. Thank you all very much. So who will be summarizing next time? Any volunteers?
I can do that, Prabhuji. This is
Okay,
Sunil.
fine. Thank you. Okay, Sunil Prabhu will next time summarize. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.